Introducing the all-new 252 electric range at Hugo Luna Motors. See our Peugeot E2008, now available in electric. This bold SUV boasts a striking design with sleek LED headlamps and a redesigned grille for a powerful presence. With zero CO2 emissions and 156 HP of power, the E2008 delivers efficiency and performance. Discover more at hugolunamotors.ie. Drive the future today.
Country Life on Midlands 103. Brought to you by W. Orshaw, Burlington Business Park, Tullamore. Supplier of New Holland's tractors in the Midlands. worshaw.ie.
Now, good evening and welcome to Country Life here on Midlands 103. It's 26th of November 2025. MJ Clery with you until 8 p.m, bringing you the latest from the Midlands and further afield from the worlds of food, farming and agri-business. Thank you all for joining me this evening. As always, here every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mild weather over the last few days, and I must say quite nice over the course of this week, and it is the same again for the next few days. So we're in a little mild belt at the moment here at the end of November, start of December. The programme this week, and in a moment, Adam Woods from the Farmers Journal is going to chat to me about changes in the rules for purchasing dosing. So 1 December coming up in a few days' time is when this change is coming in. We've featured it many times in the programme here over the years, but the change is finally here. So what's it going to mean for you if you're going into a merchant and you wish to purchase a dosing product? How does it occur? We'll be finding that out from Adam, and almost ironically, Adam was in Brazil a couple of weeks back, and there is no problem picking up not only dosing but also very strong antibiotics over the counter in Brazil. We're going to be talking about that in just a moment with Adam. Also this evening, a company called AMS Carbon have just announced a biomethane plant in County Meath. It's called From Grass to Gas. It's going to generate an alternative income stream for farmers, the company says. Pat Hart is from AMS Carbon. He's going to chat to me a little bit later here on the programme. IFAC have just carried out an economic report stating that the farm machinery industry is worth a whopping, wait for it, €5 billion to the Irish economy, and 25,000 jobs to boot. Michael Farley from the FTMTA will join me later to chat about this report and the huge economic impact that the machinery industry has on not only rural Ireland but the Irish economy in general. Now, as always, text me or WhatsApp me here 083 30 10 103. Happy to bring to our guests this evening. We're going to kick on now with Adam Woods from the Farmers Journal. Adam, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
Good evening, MJ.
We're going to talk about Brazil in a moment, and a big news story, which was your front page story last week, and it's got a lot of traction throughout media over the course of the last week to 10 days about antibiotics and purchase them in Brazil. But before we do that, and as I said, almost ironically, it's easier to buy drugs in that part of the world. It's getting more and more difficult to buy them here. 1 December sees changes if you go to your merchant and you want to buy some dosing products. How are farmers going to be able to purchase them going forward? Adam, what's the procedure going to be?
So yeah, with the prescription, in a nutshell, MJ, from Monday, farmers will only be able to buy antiparasitics such as wormers or flucicides or fluke doses with a prescription from a vet, basically. So it means that you can't buy it over the co-op, it will say over the counter at your local co-op or merchant without first going through a vet and getting a prescription. So really important, I guess, and it's for part-time farmers, I suppose. I'm farming at home, and generally, and I know this shouldn't be the way, but you generally decide on a Saturday morning maybe that you need to dose cattle, or the help is around, or lads are here, so we'll dose. But you're going to have to be a little bit more prepared now in terms of getting that prescription first, and then going and buying your dosing in terms of wherever you want to buy it. In terms of that NVPS, the National Veterinary Prescribing System, that also comes into effect on Monday, and we say pharmacists and dispensing organisations such as licensed merchants, co-ops, feed mills, they must be registered on that system to view the prescriptions coming from the vet. And in terms of just the timelines on that, you know, farmers need to be aware that for antimicrobials or antibiotics, a prescription is about 5 days, but it is a longer one for the it would say other animal medicines, 6 months from the date of issue for that one. So another couple of hoops to jump through there. Look, I don't think it's going to be good, to be honest, for merchants especially. We've said this a lot over the last sort of 2 years in terms of making it a little bit harder, and it may reduce competition in the market as well for those dosing products.
Well, realistically, I suppose, Adam, vets aren't going to be giving out the prescriptions for free, so there's going to be a cost if you do purchase one or not purchase one. If you go to a vet for one, then to go to your merchant. So the vet is obviously going to try and be a one-stop shop and get you to purchase the dosing product from him or her. That would seem to be what would make sense. However, as you say, the shortfall then is going to fall with the merchants, and there's going to be a big gap there. There's going to be a big amount of slack there that the merchants are going to feel.
Yeah, if I'm in a vet, I guess, getting a prescription, will I travel to a merchant then with that prescription to buy the product when the product maybe is facing across the counter at me? You know, farmers are time poor in general. Part-time farmers are especially time poor, so the chances are they'll get the product there, maybe even regardless of price, because it'll be just so handy to do that. So I guess merchants are going to be on the negative side of that going forward. And look, we'll watch this one. We'll watch the prices where they go as well over the next couple of months and see does there any effect on that. But yeah, definitely it's going to cost farmers more, because obviously that prescription won't come free.
Yeah, and this whole area then is as a result of antimicrobial resistance. And that I had Nick Cotter from County Limerick on last week. He did a Nuffield scholarship on dosing products on sheep, and it's all about, again, AMR, and he travelled all over the world, down to New Zealand, where animals had started to become resistant to the products, and it was a real problem. Farmers were facing financial ruin in that part of the world, and this is the reasoning we're given for this new rule in Ireland. But then you hopped on a plane a couple of weeks ago, Adam, and you went down to South America, and things are very, very different.
Yeah, forget everything we've just talked about for the last 2 minutes, MJ, and it's a completely different world. We went to Brazil ourselves in the IFA, Small Sport Livestock Director with the IFA, and Philip Doyle, picture editor with the Farmers Journal. So the three of us hopped in a car, hopped in a Jeep, and drove 3,000 kilometres across 4 states. Visited 13 agricultural supply stores, visited marts as well and farms, and loads of stories from all of those. But probably the big one was the agricultural supply stores, and be able to go into them and basically purchase, critically important high-level antibiotics across the counter. No Portuguese. My Portuguese isn't the best. Some people might say my English isn't the best, but Portuguese definitely isn't a strong point. No herd number, no tag number, no proof of requirement of what we needed, and basically just pointed at the shelf saying antibiotico, and basically we got it. No receipt, no barcodes on the bottles, MJ, in terms of, even having a system there to record the sale of those products. Here you think of, a vet has to record the purchase of the antibiotic, a vet has to record the sale of the antibiotic, farmer has to record the purchase of the antibiotic, we'll say the farmer has to record the use of the antibiotic, he even has to account for stuff that's not used on the farm, he or she. So huge differences there. And I suppose we spoke to Professor Martin Cormican, Professor of Clinical Bacteriology in University of Galway, and he just said in terms of all the work that's been done in Europe over the last 20 years in terms of antimicrobial resistance and trying to reduce the use of those critical antibiotics, this is human health, this is affecting people every day in terms of people dying because we're becoming resistant to antibiotics. And here we have Brazil just horsing them out across the counter. It's just it's not right, and it's not acceptable. And then in the backdrop of the Mercosur trade agreement, and in terms of standards and level playing field and the same standards, you just ask questions, well, where are we going here and what's happening?
The article, I looked at it today on the journal.ie, on the online version, and I was just looking at some of the bottles that you were purchasing, and look, there's lesser strength antibiotics, and then there's stronger ones. And I suppose just for a brand name, farmers would be familiar with the likes of Draxin or whatnot. It's one of the strongest drugs we have here in Ireland. But these are the bottles you were getting. You were getting the strongest stuff possible, just handed to you with no problem.
Yeah, that product called Cetaphor, some farmers will know it and some farmers won't, because we actually haven't used it in a long time, and vets have to do a sensitivity analysis on farmers in order to use it. But it's what's called a third generation cephalosporin. It's a really, really critical, we have to reduce the use of it to try and protect it for human health. And here they are, just throwing it out across the counter in Brazil with no questions asked whatsoever. So then if I'm a farmer in Brazil and I'm buying that and there's no questions asked as where I got that bottle, I'm not recording that then. And that's the whole issue, I guess, in this week's paper around tagging and traceability. There is no system. They talked for 20 years about getting a traceability system up and going, but there is no system for recording medicine, we'll say, withdrawals or any of that out there. And just the scale of it is so vast. It's just like you're tens of thousands of cattle on farms. So I don't think they'll ever get to that stage where we have equivalent standards in Europe, because they can't with the scale that they have. So huge questions there to be asked. Look, at EU Commission came back and said there are farms that we approve for European, imports or into Europe for beef. But in my mind, that's not acceptable. If a small proportion of farms are passed or whatever, we need to. The whole country needs to be on a level playing field, and I don't think it's ever going to get there. Minister came out this evening with us and said that he's quite concerned, and he's looking for answers from the EU Commission.
Just on cost of those drugs, Adam, what was there, maybe again just trying to do it in comparison to Irish ones, maybe it was challenging or you didn't get to it in your article, but did they seem expensive or less expensive? Or
Yeah, Draxon was actually on a par, and it will be really expensive over there, because if you take, we'll say, cost of living over there is quite low. 20 cigarettes over there is €1.50. The bottle of Draxon was €130, I think it was. Some of the lower level ones were back at sort of under €10 a bottle, so quite cheap, some of them. But those high level ones were expensive, all right. But again, no questions asked in terms of buying them, whatever we wanted. Yeah.
Another one when I have you, Adam, and it's on the National Dairy Beef Weighing Scheme. Unfortunately, and this is very annoying, I have to say, and more than annoying, it's hitting people in the pocket. But you lead with it tomorrow. Department makes more cuts to farmer payments. So this payment is being cut almost 40%. People who put in for it expected 1,000, and they're only going to get 620.
Yeah, serious questions has to be asked here, MJ, and I think we're eroding confidence in schemes now with farmers. It's always a battle sometimes to encourage farmers to join these schemes, and schemes are designed on the basis of income forgone. So it's not money for jam. You have to carry out actions. Those actions cost money, and then you get paid to compensate you for carrying out those actions. In this case, it was weighing, and it was, 50 calves to be weighed at €20 a calf. And they've reduced that to 31. And this isn't the first time that this has happened. Obviously, last week it was the National Beef Welfare Scheme, or 2 weeks ago, was reduced from €75 to €67 a calf, and the yoke payment as well from €13 to €11.50. And there's sort of a precedent set here now as regards. I don't remember this happening before. As regards, there was always money found from somewhere to prop up some of them schemes if they were oversubscribed. So going forward, acres. There's loads of questions there now as regards what way will schemes go, or if I apply for a scheme, is there a guarantee that I'll get paid for it, or could it be we'll say whittled down to very little by the time it's over.
Lastly, Adam, just a word on the trade before I let you go. Maybe softened slightly in the market in the last few weeks since I was speaking to you. What's your view?
Yeah, a little bit, and that's probably based on factory probably coming back. We're back to 740 base for bullocks this week, 750 for heifers. That's actually the first week it's steady, probably in 3 or 4, so that's a good sign. Christmas trade probably peaking now next week and maybe the week after, some of that anyway. The supply is still pretty tight. I'd say those poorer quality cattle are probably back in March. The top quality ones are still very, very strong. Cows also back, I'd say maybe 50-60 cent a kilo in March as well, and that's probably corresponding to a factory maybe concentrating on prime beef coming up to Christmas, and maybe we'll see more of a trade for cows coming into January. You always see mince sales very strong in January, so look, it's not bad. It was a bit disappointing to see those cuts, but all in all, it's not going too bad.
Very good. Many thanks for joining me, Adam, and we will be speaking to you again in the programme.
Thanks, MJ.
Adam Woods there from the Farmers Journal, and a really, really interesting one there on Brazil. A piece of investigative journalism there from Adam and the team, and it does make you really scratch your head. I went through that article today and I was looking at it yesterday online, and you can see all those antibiotics, those ones that we're familiar with here, that you have to, as we said, jump through hoops, prescriptions, and explain to the vet what you're looking for them, what's the reason. Very hard to get those strong antibiotics because we are watching this AMR, this antimicrobial resistance. And down in Brazil, then they're just being handed out to you 200ml, 250ml bottles of these antibiotics, and you do have to wonder. Then here's Mercosa on the table, and it is such an unlevel playing field, so different. And you're hoping that articles like this, and the fact that the minister is aware, and it's going to be brought up out in Europe, that it's going to be used as a negotiating tool for us when we're fighting against that South American beef coming into Europe, because they're completely different products given the traceability that we have here on these shores in comparison to South America. Now, coming up after the break, we're going to be talking to Pat Hart. He's from a company called AMS Carbon, and it is all about a new plant which has been given the go-ahead in County Meath. It is entitled From Grass to Gas. So we're going to hear about that in just a moment. Stay tuned.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
With W.R. Shaw, family owned and serving the Midlands since 1982, we're Ireland's largest independent agri-dealer, specialising in New Holland tractors and parts. With over 40 years' experience, we provide top quality sales, service and support. Visit W.R. Shaw in Tullamore and Carlow or online at wrshaw.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here on Midlands 103. Now we're moving on to the area of biomethane, a new facility in County Meath, and the company in charge are called AMS Carbon, and we have Pat Hart on the line. He's their Chief Operating Officer. Pat, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
MJ, how are you? And thank you for having us. It's Carbon AMS, by the way.
Carbon AMS, other way around I had it. Pat, tell us, Carbon AMS and this whole facility that we're talking about up in Meath, biomethane facility, break it down for the average listener here, a farmer in the Midlands. What's it all about, or what does it mean to the locality?
Yeah, so Carbon AMS is an Irish biomethane developer, and on Monday it was announced we teamed up together with our funding partner STCL, and we launched a 15-year gas purchase agreement with Alexion AstraZeneca. This partnership enables the development of our facility in County Meath, and I suppose it also demonstrates how Irish agriculture and the pharma industry, or any other industry for that matter, can come together to deliver renewable gas and decarbonise industrial applications in Ireland. I suppose is the summary of it.
And for farmers then in the locality, Pat, say for example I'm a beef or sheep farmer in the area, or possibly a dairy farmer, but maybe I might want my grass too much from a dairy farmer. It depends. Depends on what you're going to be offering, I suppose. How's this going to work then on the ground? How does the system work? What do you feed into it? And then how do farmers make money out of it?
Yeah, so I'll give you a breakdown of the system first, MJ. So basically, as I said to you, we're fully agriculture, so we only touch agricultural crops, or we only intake agricultural crops, farmyard manures and slurries. So they basically are fed into the system. They're fed into big concrete tanks, which basically are mixed and heated. The material then passes through them tanks, and the gas is extracted from those from the system. That gas is then upgraded into biomethane, and the methane is injected into the national grid as natural gas, and I suppose that's what Alexion is buying. The byproduct is a product called digestate, which is rich, obviously, in all the nutrients, in the high in P's and K's and nitrogen, and that's basically fed back to the farmers. But in terms of option for the farmers, MJ, what we have in Meath, I suppose we have two pioneering farmers there, Donald Hartford and Brewa Duffy, who we've partnered up with. They will provide all the feedstock to the facility. And by doing that, they have a large farm, or they have a large land bank themselves, but they will also team up with many local farmers. What we say is there's not just one option here. The most important thing is, it has to make sense for a farmer. There has to be a margin in it. All of us in Carbon AMS are from an agricultural background. We have all agricultural enterprises at home, so we understand how that works, I suppose, in Ireland, and how unique the Irish agricultural sector is. And I suppose, to give you an example, in the Meath situation, and this will vary throughout the country. Obviously, you come west of the Shannon, it'll be slightly different. But there's a lot of potatoes. So say for argument's sake, the rotation. So every 4 to 5 years, that has to come out of potatoes and go into something like grass or maize or whatever else. And Donald and Brewa there have teamed up with a lot of potato producers as that crop rotation. Also, in terms of irrigation, you see a lot of dairy farmers need extra land as part of irrigation. They don't really need the grass, but they need the land. So, we have an option there where they could just supply in, whether it's 20, 30 acres of grassland, they supply that into the plant. So I suppose the main theme out of it is we're very flexible. It's not just one model fits all. I suppose we're very flexible, and we can accommodate many different farming enterprises.
How many acres, Pat, roughly are you talking about, does this need to encompass to keep this plant operational throughout the year?
Yeah, so the Duleek facility will take between 2,000 and 2,500 acres. It is substantial, I suppose, but in an area
it's not too bad, though.
Yeah, we go 15 to 20 kilometre radius, so like it's less than 1% of the farmland basically in a 15 to 20 kilometre radius.
And it has to be, I'm open to correction on this, but it has to be silage as opposed to grass. Is that correct?
You can put grass in, but I suppose what we see with the silage is like it's ensiled, obviously it's in a clamp, and we kind of call that our battery. We know exactly what's there. Like if you have kind of grass coming in, day to day, you don't know the quality of it, you don't know the quantity of it, and it's kind of more difficult to manage a process like a biomethane facility on that ongoing basis. But there's nothing stopping you, because it's not a case you can't put grass directly into it. It's just a case it doesn't really work for the process in terms of managing it.
Yeah, and our listeners now are obviously going to wonder when it comes down to it, farmers throughout Laois, Offaly, Westmeath, and indeed we have listeners up in County Meath as well, as to the hard facts and the hard cash in relation to it. So I suppose when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking to myself, right, we're selling grass, i.e. silage, to this, so it needs to be something equivalent to the cost of whatever making silage, selling bales, but there needs to be a bit more than that to make it viable and to make it appealing for farmers. So I suppose the farmers are going to wonder, if I'm selling to this, what am I going to get paid?
Yeah, and a very relevant question. Like, and as I stated earlier, like this has to make sense from a farmer, and to get paid what your costs are to make silage, we don't feel is good enough, and that's not what we model for. There has to be a margin in it. But also, I suppose it's like you go and you ask, how much are you going to give me for my win? And you have to see there's obviously different qualities. And for top end farmers, MJ, that's harvesting in early May, June, will have top end silage, which will obviously dictate a top end price. Where if we go with the round bale side of things, I suppose harvesting round bales in July, first cut in the end of July or something, obviously is not going to get a premium price. But we're obviously very open on this. There is a margin in it for farmers, and we believe the model that we have supports a good margin for farmers in that to make it appealing for them to feed into us.
I suppose the interesting aspect with it, Pat, is the fact that the digestate then is going to come back onto the farms, and it's going to keep your P&K up. So, you're not looking at depleting the resources of your holding. You're looking at keeping them topped up year on year. That's the real angle here for farmers, I think.
Yeah, it is, and it's hugely important from our perspective, because the traceability and sustainability of the biomethane we produce, it's critical, I suppose, that we don't use chemical fertiliser. And I suppose that's the big cost saving for farmers in a system like this. We provide digestate back to them. We have we call it the bionutrient ecosystem, which monitors all that in terms of soil samples, monitors all the nutrients that's extracted from the ground in terms of the growing cycle, and also what's put back onto the ground to grow for the next cycle. So from that aspect of it, we feel we have a very good system in place in terms of that. The first thing we see with a lot of soils, MJ, is we have to bring the P's and K's up to the level. A lot of them are depleted, especially a lot of tillage ground. For the last 10 or 12 years, the margin in tillage hasn't been great, as we all know, and a lot of that ground is depleted. So our first aim of that bionutrient ecosystem is to bring lands up to optimal fertility, and by doing that, I think that also will increase the production from them lands, which I think Teagasc have done a study on it called the hidden hectares, where even increasing the fertility of the soils to optimum levels really gives a benefit in terms of the yield from that ground.
Are we going to see, Pat, in the next few years then, is this the start of these facilities? Are we going to see them popping up? I know the plan is to get them up and running in AD as part of our greenhouse gas emission targets and whatnot, but on real terms, your involvement here on the ground, are we going to see these now around the likes of the Midlands in the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years?
Yeah, I believe we will. I don't think we're going to hit the targets that's outlined in some of the policies we see, the couple of hundred plants. But we have a commitment to build 10 plants in carbon AMS by 2030, and we believe that's achievable. It'll be on a similar scale to what we've done in Duleek, and they will be all agri-biomethane, agri-based. There's also a market for the waste-based ones. They will have their place, I suppose, but there's significantly different to what we do here in Carbon AMS. But to answer your question, I think yes, it will be. I think Alexion have shown huge courage. They've fully now decarbonised all their Irish manufacturing, which is a big thing for Ireland as a country when you take into consideration our climate action plan and also what's coming down the line in terms of fines and stuff from Europe in terms of our emissions. So we believe the leadership they have shown, other companies are going to follow suit. And like everything, when there is a market for something, the agriculture will adopt to support that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting times, Pat. We've heard lots about these over the years. Stephen Robb has often been on with us here from the Farmers Journal telling us about this, but this is actually happening on the ground now, and it's great to see. We wish you all the best with it. No doubt we'll be speaking to you again on the programme. Many thanks, Pat.
Thanks a million, MJ. Thank you. Take care.
Pat Hart there, and he is the Chief Operating Officer of Carbon AMS, and that is the plant. It is in County Meath, and it is going to be supplying biomethane by Q4 2026. So what's that? Now, basically, this time next year. That's ambitious, isn't it? So I suppose there's going to be a lot of targets there to try and get that built and get it up and running at that stage. And that is the outline, basically, that local farmers in that locality, 10, 12, 15 mile radius, then are going to be supplying, be it silage or indeed slurry, to the plant, getting paid for it, and then you get your digestate back and you keep your P's and your K's up. And I suppose it's going to all come down to the monetary side of things. Is it going to be worthwhile to do it? And if it is, farmers will do it, and if it's not, then that's where the issue will be. So there has to be a margin, and it has to be profitable for the farmers. So it's another aspect for rural Ireland, really, and it can be a positive one for local economies as well. So it's one of those ones where we'll watch this space and we will see as it progresses. Now, coming up after the break, we're going to be talking to Michael Farley. He's from the FTMTA, and IFAC recently did a report on how the farm machinery industry is worth $5 billion to the Irish economy, and it employs over 25,000 people. So we're going to be talking about that in just a moment. Stay tuned.
Surprise yourself with the all-new 252 Suzuki range at Hugo Luna Motors. Suzuki's Japanese quality is ready to stand out and make you feel proud every time you drive. Whether it's the zippy Swift or the adventure-ready S-Cross, enjoy 0% finance, handy tech, safety features and great value as standard, all wrapped in the fun and efficiency of a hybrid. The only tough part? Choosing which car to drive. Visit HugoLunaMotors.ie today, where we're not just different, we're good different. Finance subject status, terms and conditions apply.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
Brought to you by W.R. Shaw, where New Holland isn't just a brand, it's our passion. For over 40 years, we've been Ireland's trusted name for New Holland tractors, parts and farm machinery. Whether you need new, used or ex-hire tractors, we've got you covered. WRShaw.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here on Midlands 103. We are moving on to machinery, and we have Michael Farley from the FTMTA joining me on the line from County Meath. Michael, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
Thanks very much for having me on again, MJ.
You're more than welcome, Michael. We have a release here from IFAC. IFAC did a study of the machinery industry, and the figures they're eye-watering, Michael, is what I would say. The industry is worth, according to the study, almost €5 billion to the Irish economy and almost 25,000 jobs. Huge numbers here.
Huge numbers, MJ. And if you want to take that further, exports are worth, of Irish farm machinery are worth over 700 million and exporting to 61 countries. This is it's a really good news story. We always knew that it was a significant industry, but I suppose this report is trying to shine a spotlight on it and make sure that other people realise how big the industry and the sector is.
And I suppose, as you alluded to there, the exports, when you do go to some of the shows, say the likes of the ploughing, but you also have your FTMTA show in Punchestown every other year. I was up at it one year. And you do really see then the amount of indigenous companies there are creating top quality products and selling them around the world, from slurry tankers to umbilical spreaders, you name it, and we have it.
Absolutely. And, it's also like they again are the visible ones, the ones that you see the branding and see them driving down the road every day of the week. But there's other great news stories, like, a fairly local one to me and indeed to Westmeath, is Dramone Engineering down there on the Meath-Westmeath Cavan border, where they've been in operation for 40 years. And if you buy any major brand tractor across most of Europe, it's going to be a Dramone hitch that's on the back of it. You know, we launched our report today, and there's a company that Joe Deacon from Distag joined us today. And if you weren't in the industry, you wouldn't know about Distag. But Distag has a turnover of about 50 million a year and employs about 120 people down in Carlow. And they just supply components and parts into the manufacturing sector in Ireland. You know, so there's so many of these businesses that people really aren't aware of and that are really important, providing employment in every parish, in every county, right across this country, and actually on the 32 counties of Ireland.
And I suppose it is important then as well, Michael, to acknowledge the fact that it's these businesses then that are keeping farmers going on a daily basis, keeping cattle fed, keeping silage made, keeping slurry put out on fields, fertiliser, you name it. It's all of these machines, all of this equipment that is the lifeblood of rural Ireland and indeed the lifeblood of Irish agriculture. So we're one and the same, really. Farm machinery, farming, it all comes together. So, you know, it's an industry that relies on each other as much as anything, but these figures they're so huge, so it's so important then for farming to be going well, to be able to put money into the machinery industry.
Absolutely, and that can't be underestimated in terms of the support of farmers and contractors around the country. But I suppose to put a bit of context on the figures, MJ, if you consider, like, our industry is worth about 5 billion annually, like international tourism is worth 6 billion annually, and if you see the supports that sector attracts, like reductions in VAT, and, you know, you're hearing about them every day on the news, you know, in terms of the critical sector it is. But our sector is nearly as big as that sector, and you never hear about it.
And I see a part of the report then is unlocking the sector's full potential, and you have a few points that you would like the government to take on board and to sit up and listen. But an interesting one, I think, and it's the element that comes into all business and every industry, and that is training and development of young people and of new staff. This is the issue we hear in machinery, no more than we hear it in agriculture or building or whatever the case is. Very hard to get staff, very hard to get young people to train. I suppose we really need something that's going to encourage young people into the industry.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the FTMTA and the industry itself has a responsibility in terms of getting that message out, and that's what we're hoping to do as well. Like, for example, MJ, the other day I was in a facility and I was looking, there was a PhD student there, and what she was doing was she was tweaking using AI welder to increase the efficiency and the accuracy of the welding that's in it. Like, you know, people have this image of the industry that somebody in a mucky pair of overalls lying under a machine. It's so far from that. You know, there is an element of that in the industry, but there is also high-end engineering, you know, finance, all kinds of jobs, technology jobs in the sector as well. And we need to let young people understand about that, because we want the brightest and the best in our sector.
And I do see in the report as well, AI is mentioned, and we are going to see more and more, Michael, in machinery as we progress. I remember at the ploughing, I actually interviewed a guy, and it was drone, AI spraying, AI technology in a drone to identify weeds so they could spray the individual patches as opposed to the whole crop. So this is something we're going to see more and more of, and machinery is only going to become more specialised.
Absolutely. And if you see the technology now embedded even in a tractor, you know, from the remote diagnostics where the tractor is constantly feeding performance data back up to the cloud, and it's AI that's looking at that data, and, you know, it can predict breakdowns and tell the operator to stop the tractor before an engine fails or a transmission fails. You know, you also then have the machines generating data in terms of yield, the crop, you know, the planting, the soil, all of this information. And again, that information can be fed, that data then can be used by people to make management decisions on the farm. You know, you're seeing that in dairy herds where they have robotic milking, and they've collars on cows with all kinds of data. But that is a huge part of the machinery sector industry too.
Very exciting sector to be a part of. Michael, you must have a very interesting job from day to day, being involved with such high-level companies, such an amount of money going into the economy, such an amount of expertise. Must be really interesting on a daily basis.
Look, I'm just passionate about it because I see these businesses and visit them on a daily basis, and I just want to get the message out there about them. At the launch of our report today, we had Maurice Kelly, who owns Kelly's of Boris, talking to us, and we also had Joe Deacon that I mentioned a minute ago. And between those two individuals and their family businesses, they have a turnover of almost 100 million and employ about 200 people in really good jobs in rural Ireland. You know, and that's, I suppose, the message that I want to get out there. And that's what excites me about the sector, is the entrepreneurial spirit. You know, and our manufacturers are saying, you know, exports are currently at 700 million, but they're saying they can achieve a target of over 1 billion very quickly if the correct supports are in place for them.
Yeah, and it's important to beat the drum. Michael, we'll say many thanks for joining me here on the programme this evening, and we will be speaking to you again on Country Life. Thank you.
MJ, thanks very much. Thank you.
Michael Farley there from the FTMTA. And as we said, look, it is a good news story on the amount of employment there is in the machinery industry. And as we said, look, hand in hand, agriculture, machinery, they go hand in hand, they're all together. But it's the exports, I suppose, when you do see some of these companies who are exporting to all over the world, Europe, US, Australia and beyond. I believe McHale, for example, up in County Mayo, I believe they're one of the biggest balers down in Australia and New Zealand. And it goes to show you how small little businesses created in little sheds beside houses years and years ago have grown to be these global behemoths, and it is such a story to be proud of if you're involved in the machinery industry. Now, we are going to a break and we'll be back with you in a couple of moments. Stay tuned.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
With W.R. Shaw. Looking for the best in farm machinery? We've been supplying top quality New Holland tractors and parts and providing service since 1982. Our expert team is here to keep your farm running smoothly, with branches in Tullamore and Carlow. Visit wrshaw.ie today.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here in Midlands 103. Now, I was chatting to a farmer earlier this week and he informed me about a car trailer got stolen from his yard, and it jogged my memory that I did a piece with a company at the Ploughing Championships back in September about a product that they had for trailers, anti-theft device, and I hadn't played it to you. So I just want to give it a spin this evening, and it might be something you're interested in. I have come across a very interesting trade stand. It's called Can't Rob, but it's spelled K-A-N-T-R-O-B, and the man behind it is Mr. Sean Kiernan. Sean, many thanks for chatting to me here on the programme. Tell me, what are we looking at exactly?
We're actually looking at bespoke locking solutions for trailers, several different types of trailers.
And what was the inspiration behind this? As we know, theft in the countryside, unfortunately, is widespread. Did a trailer get stolen off you? Was it something that happened to a neighbour? Where was the inspiration?
I just know so many people that lost trailers. I know one fella that went to a funeral, come back, his trailer was gone. It's a bit of a thing I have. I don't like people that steal. If you can see number 7 in my logo, it stands for the 7th commandment, thou shalt not steal.
Well, look, we can't argue with that. No hard-working man or woman likes anything to be stolen from them, so this is going to help fight against it. How does it work, Sean?
It's bespoke, especially to Diver Williams, the Nugent trailer, to the knot hitch. It's cast stainless, it's patented, it's police endorsed. It just really fits, really easy to fit, and you can drive with it on. It's the best. It makes the knot hitch the most secure on the market by far.
And I'm looking at it here. It's what's it made from? It's a heavy little piece of kit here.
It's made from cast stainless, over 2.5 kg of cast stainless with a patented cylinder.
So I'm thinking sledgehammer or whatnot, it just isn't going to make a mark on this at all?
No, sledgehammer's no good because it's cast, it's the one strength all the way around. And as you can see with the brochure here, we have a police endorsement UK, and we have secured by design, which sole secure, which means it's tested by the National Locksmiths Association in the UK. It's tested.
It's very good. Look, it's a really solid little piece of kit. What are we talking about price point, Sean, for the different models?
Here at the show for the knot hitch is $250. Next week it's going to be $295. It's not a cheap lock, but they're not sold to secure a cheap trailer. But if you actually feel them, see them, wear them, you will understand the money is in them.
And what's your own background, Sean? Obviously you're a man that can work with his hands. What were you doing before you were at this business?
I'm a fitter welder. I'm designing bits a long time now. I stopped drinking for obvious reasons in 2006. I went into a little workshop at the back of my house. I asked God to give me a few ideas, and He hasn't let me down yet.
And you're selling this throughout Ireland and the UK at the moment?
Only launched here at the Ploughing. I'm looking for a major distributor to come on board and an investment, I'll be honest.
Yeah, well, very good. I see lots of signs up looking for investor. Every business needs one. What's your website, Sean? And spell it to us, please, for the radio.
It's www.cantrob.com. KANTROB.com. Also, my number will be.
And that was a little piece from the Ploughing Championships back a couple of months ago that I had intended to play for you, and it had slipped my mind. But as I said, it was jogged. My memory was jogged this week. I have the website up in front of me, actually, KANTROB.com, Can't Rob. And that is a really, really nifty little design and a nifty lock for a trailer. And as I said, speaking to a farmer this week who unfortunately got a trailer stolen from him, so that might be something that could come in handy for you out there. Now, that is it for this evening's programme. I would like to thank all of my guests here over the course of the last hour. We started off with Adam Woods from the Farmers Journal, telling us about his trip to Brazil and how easy it is to purchase antibiotics down in that part of the world. We moved on. Pat Hart from Carbon AMS told us all about their facility, which they are building in County Meath, as an income stream for farmers in the locality. And Michael Farley there from the FTMTA gave us the lowdown on the recent IFAC report, which shows that the farm machinery industry is worth €5 billion per annum to the Irish economy and employs almost 25,000 people. That is it for this evening's programme. I would like to thank you all for joining me here over the course of the last hour. Show is repeated on Sunday morning at 7 a.m. through to 8 a.m. and I will be back with you next Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. as always. You can get us wherever you get your podcasts. If you type in MJ space Clery, Clery, we will pop up and you can listen at your leisure. I will speak to you in a week's time when we're in the month of December. We can start mentioning the C word, the Christmas word then. I'll speak to you all in a week's time. Good night.